So in this week's Creative Confidence Here catch up today, I'm going to be chatting to John. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm John. I'm a lover of music and lots of other things, but creatively, I'm a lover of music. I do a radio show now on Six Towns Radio, trying to promote new sort of soul, jazz, and reggae type music for probably the last 12 years now. And I've always found music to be my place of escape and exploration, shall we say, over my lifetime. So that's my creative side.
That's great. Have you ever like as a kid, did you ever see yourself like maybe wanting to go into that route, or did it just come about through
I
the
think I
acting,
think
getting
there's an
into it?
interesting story there that sort of I will share, that is a regret really, because when I was a kid, I was like a lot of boys, just a bit stupid, really. A lot of boys tend to be a bit stupid and didn't appreciate what opportunities you had back then. So I always remember, it's one of my regrets, that at school we were allowed to play instruments.
Oh yeah.
And I was, because I was tall and big, I was given the double bass to play.
Oh wow.
And at the time didn't appreciate it at all when I was 14. Just didn't really want to, didn't see the relevance of it. Now, if I could play it now, I'd be in dreamland. So I'm not a musician. But the context, I guess, it's quite interesting historically, really, and I think a few of my friends would say the same. Sort of growing up in the 1970s, really, in Stoke a lot of the time, and probably a lot of similar areas like this, the choices were fairly limited. It's industrial city, probably more prosperous than it is now because there was lots of work. So people had a bit more money, I guess. But in terms of creative horizons and opportunities, and certainly in the music world, they seemed fairly limited. So you either had what was in the charts, there was a big kind of heavy rock kind of crowd, and other than that, there was probably not an awful lot that was at that time that was around. And a few of us, we used to go to the youth club together. And there's this older kid who came, and he had this music he'd bring in and play, this kind of exciting kind of soul music that just sort of captivated me and a few friends at the time, and it sort of really, it sort of got us really sort of enthused. So and he was probably about 4 or 5 years older than us, and again, me and my friends, we really got into this. And when we got a bit older and we started working and getting a bit of money, that was what we really wanted to do. So I remember something about when we were about 15, 16, there was this Northern Soul night at
Oh
Trenton
right.
Gardens Ballroom, which was still going then. And I grew up in Handford, so we knew, one of the things we knew back then was every which way of going into Trenton Gardens without paying. So as kids, that's what you knew. So we found a way into this, and it was just kind of this magical world, that it felt like a magical world. So this place full of this music we didn't really know that much about, and the energy and the dancing and everything that was going on. And then we met other people, and it's kind of turned out that there was quite a following for it in Stoke. And so we used to, knock about with these people. We all met in this, which I suppose people would think was a kind of a rough pub in Hanley. It's now a car park called the Antelope. But it didn't feel rough at the time. It just felt that was a place of escape from the kind of, I don't want to use the word monotony, but it did feel like a monotonous existence. And I think quite a lot of that, the chronicles of kind of soul music, Northern soul music, has sort of, at the time, it's often used as an explanation that going to the places and the venues and the all-nighters and everything was a kind of a escape from day-to-day life. And a lot of friends that have manual jobs and hard work in factories or the mines or wherever. So this trip and this kind of camaraderie that we had, because we always met in this pub, and we played the old kind of soul music. But there's this guy there called Phil Oliver. He's no longer with us now. Real character. And funnily enough, some friends recently, you know, the blue plaques that you get on people's famous people's houses in London. You know, Charles Dickens lived here. Well, a couple of friends locally have got together and have actually put one on the car park.
Oh,
So
wow.
Phil Oliver DJ'd here between 1976 and 1982 and introduced a load of young people to music. And that was the next point I was going to make, in so much as that we were all into this kind of northern soul that was based around Motown and that type of thing, which was brilliant. But Phil was a kind of guy who was into more the disco stuff that was happening at the time, and he worked in a record shop in Hanley, and he would sell all the latest disco and stuff like that, which kind of introduced us as a young bunch of people into a kind of slightly different type of music, and it was always that kind of love of discovering something new that then fueled me from then on, I suppose, as an individual. So, you know, that those kinds of offshoots from the main kind of northern soul, which is still popular now, you know, people have stayed with it for 40 odd years, and I still like it very much. But then, you know, there was more of a funky element to some of the rooms there, and then jazz became a part of it because people could do acrobatic dancing to fast jazz music. And so all these things were happening in this kind of melting pot. And of course, then come 1976, 77, punk exploded on the scene in Stoke as well. So that kind of threw everything up in the air. So the music scene became really kind of vibrant then. So
Mixed
all of a sudden,
communities sort of thing. Like,
yeah,
I suppose getting on to this bit, so the confidence and you seeing yourself this person who loves music, you're finding your way by, I suppose, discovering yourself through music, and then you meet all of these sorts of different communities then, and I
yeah,
suppose it
different
gets you
people.
discovering new
Yeah,
music and stuff like that.
and life as well. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, quite a sheltered kind of Stoke working class upbringing. You know, the Antelope was a place of safety for lots of different communities. So at the time, you know, gay people could go in there and feel safe, which in 1977 wasn't like it was in 2023, you know, quite a hostile environment. So we're 16, 17-year-olds being introduced to gay people, which we've had a very slanted insight into that world before that. And all of a sudden, yeah, these people are just have a laugh and have a drink just like the rest of us.
And
You
everybody
know?
just like as a
Yeah, you know,
community in
the
that sense of
place,
belonging.
yeah, the place was run by a West Indian guy. So again, you know, mixing with different colored people, and you know, especially Afro-Caribbeans, got friends from back then that, you know, we've had for 40 years now, learning about their culture, the problems they'd have. So I always had a friend who was quite entrepreneurial, you know, worked hard, was dealing in the records, some of these rare records, making a bit of money. Probably a bit older than us, have a nice car. And, you know, we just virtually every week we stop by the police because he's a black guy in a nice car. You know, I mean, that's the kind of, you know, so these are all the kinds of sub things that you're learning. And then punk explodes onto the scene, and you get a whole explosion of music with everybody wanting to be in bands. So, you know, I remember in Stoke, didn't know them that well myself, but, you know, you got people, just ordinary kids who, again, would be working in the factories or wherever. They could go into a band, and bands like Discharge came around, which was still performing now 40 years later, be a hardcore punk band kind of thing in Stoke. They were quite famous, and also, you know, I then, don't ask me how this ever happened, but at the top of the pub at the top of the street that where I lived, where my parents lived at the time, I met my future wife, who was a punk, and I wasn't anything like that. And then so we started going out in about, I don't know, 1979, 1980. And so all of a sudden I'm starting to go with her to see all this different music again, you know, and
It's so
yeah,
cool.
so and that's basically been, I suppose that's the roots of the foundation that ever since then. So throughout my life, I've always enjoyed this discovering new music, listening to different music, learning new music. And that's what sort of informs all the stuff I've done with enjoying music since then. So when the radio opportunity started, it was just a case, it was just a volunteer thing. It's always had, but it's done well to survive for 12 years, really. You know, it's going through different phases. Hopefully they're getting on DAB soon. And I've just stuck at it. And again, just try and play interesting new music, trying to support new artists and also, you know, labels, small independent labels who would try to, you know, promote interesting music that might not be new, but again, it's that kind of not anti-corporate culture, but just people actually trying to do things for themselves and support them. Because you realise, I've got a friend in Wolverhampton who actually works with sort of soul singers, trying to get them promoted in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost as though in the last 15 or so years, the industry's just disappeared, you know. So now it's very much, if you want to perform and make music, you have to really do that yourself. You know, I don't know if it compares to other arts.
Oh yeah.
It's a real scramble to just get by, and you'll find that people have part-time jobs, and they'll also have to do, you know, anything to support what they do. So some will be doing music and then trying to do motivational speaking or anything really to just get to be able to express themselves as artists, which I find quite sad really and emotional, because you see some of the talent that's around and you just want it to have a platform and a space to thrive, because I think it enriches everybody's life if people can express themselves to be the best that they can be.
I think that's that with social media, isn't it? Like with social media, like even though maybe some of the older generation don't necessarily like the idea of it, what it does do is give people that platform that if they want to get out there, it's that first step forward, isn't it? And I suppose like podcasts and being on like a thing like SoundCloud or getting your music out there in front of people, it's an easy way to do that than it is like you can't send letters anymore. Or do you know how the old way of
I think it's a good thing, and I think it's also it's like anything. I think everything about the whole age that we're in, and I'm probably, you know, not the best person to talk about social media. I try and use it to limited degrees to support and promote people and share. I think as that platform and that place where people can actually put stuff out there, it's fantastic. It's you know, it's a great opportunity for people. I think the downside of it is the amount of content that is out there. So what I tend to find, just from a musical perspective, and again, I don't know if this is the same from other perspectives that, you know, you work with and people you work with, is the longevity of something is just not there anymore. So often people, you know, I'll still do a bit of DJing with a couple of friends, and we'll do parties and a few bank holiday things, which we don't do as much, but we do it. And a lot of the music that's popular is stuff from quite a long time ago, because people know it and they recognize it, and the volume of stuff that comes out every single week, just to me, you know, just as somebody who's trying to do a small radio show on a, you know, internet station, I could do probably a 6-hour show, not a 2-hour show, and probably not repeat much of the content. So there's so much out there. So I suppose that the negative is, how does it get people's attention, and how do you get that kind of, you know, platform for people to come together to experience it is the bit I don't understand. I'm not saying it's not there, but it's almost creating that virtual pub where me and my friends all used to be able to meet up and go for the people of today, really. I that's the only downside. I think it's a massive opportunity, and with anything there comes a dark side. Yeah, there was certainly a dark side to the world we grew up in, you know, in the 70s as well. And I think that's just part of life, isn't it? That for every opportunity, there's a good side and there's a bad side. So that's just how it is.
No, it's been really great speaking to you today, John. So I think my last little the last little thing I'm going to ask is, do you have any like words of encouragement or words of wisdom for people out there who might want to be getting into like the music industry at the moment?
I'd just say, if anyone was going that way, is follow your passion, be passionate about it, and get advice from people whose heart's in it for the right reasons, not people who are promising you things. You know, I think there's a lot of people who have big dreams, and that's not to say you should ever step on people's dreams, because I think dreams are really important and ambition is massive. But I just think talk to people and learn from people who are wise, and listen to that advice. But keep believing and keep following your dream and collaborate with people as much as possible. I think one of the saddest things I see sometimes in Stoke is that because we've got limited resources, you know, we're not an area where there's a lot of money, so people are not going to go out and pay a tenner to see a singer they don't know, which in London they probably wouldn't think twice about. Is that people are a bit protective of what bit they've got, and I think in some ways that can be. I understand it, obviously I do. I understand all of that, but to spread and create a truly creative community, people have got to be open to share and collaborate. And I think there are signs of that locally. I think I see younger people doing things like the Captain's Bar thing in Hanley, which is based on that type of principle. And I think we just need a bit more of that, you know, across all the creative stuff.
Yeah, that's brilliant. No, it's been really, really good. Thank you so much for joining
us. You've enjoyed it. Nice chatting to you, Amy. Take care.
No worries.
Bye-bye now.